I ask you to welcome Sean Schrader. Come on up.
Thank you. Of course. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Good morning. It is such an honor to be back here with you all today. I can't believe that it's already been, I think, over 6 months since I was last here, when I was fortunate to be here in March to talk about the idea of public service and how public service can take shape in a lot of different ways. And today, I am very honored to be back to talk about this and the small steps that we all can be taking to make a difference and really understand how we can pivot in real time and really adapt in real time in order to make a significant difference. As the Reverend mentioned, I am proud to be a lifelong resident of Clearwater, and I got to tell you, when you give a really nice introduction like that, it makes it easy to come back, you know. But I will tell you too, it seems that the introduction only goes so far depending on where you are at. I recall I was getting my coffee this morning and I have to pay the same $5 as everybody else. When I start to read the biography in the drive-through line, they say, "Sir, you're holding up the line for all the other customers." So it only goes so far. But I have been very blessed to do a lot of different things and to see this idea of adaptability. And really what I want to talk about today is some real firsthand experiences that I have seen in being adaptable and what that process can really look like, and hopefully empower you all through changes in your own lives and difficulties and opportunities you face to kind of embrace that mindset. You know, it is amazing that we are now in November. The holiday season is upon us. And in the holiday season, there are a lot of great things that happen. There are all kinds of events that are happening in the community that we've heard about. There's also a lot of great holiday flavors that we have to choose from. Does anybody like pumpkin pie flavored stuff? Okay, wow, very good, very good. Okay, there's still a lot of pumpkin pie flavored things. I've tried the pumpkin pie blizzard at Dairy Queen. That's pretty good. I think they even have a pumpkin pie, the official one, at Publix here at the Village Inn. And now I think we're getting more into the candy cane flavored things. Does anybody like candy cane or peppermint? Okay, that seems to be more of a controversial one. You either love it or somebody says it's like drinking toothpaste. So it all depends on what it is. But in that, you also have a lot of exciting events going on for the holiday season. Does anybody like to go Black Friday shopping by chance? Okay, no, not as much. Okay, it seems like the idea of Black Friday has really evolved over the years. I remember maybe 10 years ago or so, Black Friday was one of these really exciting events. You would go actually on Friday morning. People would camp out in advance. You'd have the family featured on the local news that would have their turkey in the tent and everything and be ready to get that TV that was $100 off. It seemed like then maybe 6 or 7 years ago, things got even more exciting with Black Friday, where you would have to go on Thanksgiving to actually get any of the deals, if you all remember that. And if you went the day after, all the deals were gone. And that was really before online shopping took off. And so I remember it was when I was in high school. My grandfather growing up was always very, very conscious of how we could save money, how we could get good deals. And so every year, around the time of my parents' anniversary, he would work to try and find deals where he could get some kind of product on sale for my parents' anniversary, my aunt and uncle's anniversary, and then for himself and his wife. And we were looking through a Black Friday shopping catalog one year. This was a couple of years ago, and found that Walmart was going to have a great sale on air fryers for Black Friday. But the catch was that you had to actually go on Thanksgiving evening in order to get the deal, because all the Black Friday air fryer sales would probably be over if you went on Friday. And so I remember I was sitting with him, talking with him about these air fryers, and I, at the same time, found a great deal on a new cell phone. And I said, well, Grandpa, is there a way we can go together? Maybe you help me a little bit, by the way, to get the cell phone, and if you don't mind, and then we can also get these air fryers. And the only catch was that my aunt and uncle are very gracious. They've always hosted our family for Thanksgiving. The time of the dinner was going to be dependent on when we would get back from the Black Friday shopping. And as you can imagine, for everybody except me and my grandfather, that went over like a lead balloon to tell everybody you're gonna have to wait to eat any turkey until we get back. So we told everybody, okay, we're gonna go Black Friday shopping at Walmart at 6 o'clock in the evening when the doors open. It's gonna be no problem. We're gonna get there, we're gonna get the stuff we want, and we're gonna be back, have the turkey in no time, maybe even open the air fryer if we're lucky, or show off a new cell phone. We go to Walmart, we get in line. Of course, things don't go according to plan, right? Oh, I'll be in and out of the store in 5 minutes. Well, 30, 40 minutes later, I'm still trying to get in the door. We finally get to the electronics section where they're supposed to have these cell phones and these air fryers. Come to find out, the air fryer that he had found in the catalog was already sold out. And to begin with, he thought, we just are gonna go home, we're not gonna do anything. I was very happy because the cell phone was there and that was, done part of the deal, but the air fryers were gone. And I told him, Grandpa, if we go back to everybody that's been waiting for us for an hour and a half and say we didn't buy the stuff we needed to, that's gonna go over like another lead balloon. And so, funny enough, there was another set of air fryers that was right down the way, I think, that had been positioned just in the right spot to really get your attention. And they were around the same price as what we had looked at before. Of course, we hadn't done all the consumer reports research like we had on the first model, but thought maybe we could be adaptable in the moment in order to overcome what may seem like a pretty silly and small challenge, but to get what we intended on doing, although it was slightly different, to still have the same end result. And sure enough, we got a shopping cart, got the 3 air fryers, got the cell phone, and went back. Everybody was somewhat copacetic with our, tardiness back to the Thanksgiving dinner. But to this day, those air fryers still work in everybody's household. And I think it tees up a nice conversation today on adaptability, how what you are thinking about doing, a goal you have, something you have in mind, the pathway to get there may not always be as clear as you think, or it may be clear up front and then there are obstacles or challenges that you see in the process. But through this mindset of adaptability, through embracing change, through embracing the idea of maybe changing the pathway to get where you need to go, I think that you can achieve all the goals you have, can achieve all that you are intending to do, maybe just slightly different, but still having the same or even better result as an effect. And so if we can go to the first picture, please. I want to share a couple examples today of a few times that I have had to be adaptable in my own life, sometimes not really expected. And it seems that adaptability, when I talk with my friends, is something that everybody has mastered, right? Oh, adaptability, that's no problem. Yeah, I can change in the moment, that's no problem, until it is actually time to change. And that's something nobody likes to do. I understand change is really not something that we like. We're creatures of habit, right? Especially when the pumpkin spice coffee is gone for good this holiday season, I'll be upset. That means I have to change back to regular caramel flavored stuff. But I think that there is, I know, right, it's a real hardship, but there are different ideas of adaptability that we can use in practice. So a couple of years ago when I was at the University of South Florida, and I was approaching the end of my time as a student pursuing my bachelor's degree in business management, I thought, maybe I could stay, maybe I could pursue an MBA. And sure enough, I was offered the opportunity to apply some of the classes in my undergraduate degree towards an accelerated MBA and use leftover scholarship money to really make it a nice deal, one that I could not pass up. And so I thought it would be fun to remain engaged and be more involved in the campus community, maybe even in the student government. And up to this point is my time really then as a senior in college. I had done a couple of things. I was fortunate to go to events and get to know students on campus at the University of South Florida in St. Petersburg. And a number of students approached me and said, Sean, you should think about running to be the campus governor, which is essentially like being the student body president. We think you might do a good job. You use a lot of dad jokes, so maybe you can relate more or less to the student body, but you could really make an impact. And I thought, yeah, that would be kind of fun to maybe run and do something like that. And so there was a qualifying period, like in any election. You had to qualify. They had to make sure I had no huge grievances on my record and my grades were okay. And thankfully all of that passed and all the checks were good to go to actually run in the election. And the campaigning season happened, and it was a 2-week period, I think, to campaign. And I had a running mate. The running mate was much more relaxed than I was. And I thought, you know, that's kind of good. You have somebody that's very relaxed, maybe me that has too much coffee in one day, and it really kind of balances each other out when you think about it. And we started to campaign, and we both had this idea, myself and my running mate, that we really didn't need to campaign that seriously. We're known on campus. People know who we are. When they go to vote, they'll recognize the name, and that's really all you need to do. And that was a mindset we held until maybe the last couple days of the race. And a few friends came to me and they said, Sean, you're not going to win this election. You know, this candidate that is running against you, they are doing very well. They are competing with everybody. They are really meeting with students, talking with them, meeting them where they are outside the dining hall, outside their dorms. And I don't think you're going to win. I thought, oh, no, that's crazy. Everybody knows our name. It's going to work. I even had the slogan, Schrader is greater. It, you know, seemed to work pretty well. I thought everything's going to be fine. There were 3 candidates, myself and my running mate and 2 other teams that were running. And they had the announcement of the election results. Shockingly enough, my friends were right. We lost the election, but because it was a 3-candidate race, the team that had won did not get 50% of the vote. And so there had to be a runoff election. And I thought, this is a chance. This is a chance to start over once again, to be adaptable. I thought I was going to be getting my new office ready and getting all the decorations ordered and really doing the important work. But I realized, well, if I want to go do the shopping, I need to actually be adaptable and focus on winning the election first. And so me and my running mate, we took a different approach, actually meeting with students, talking to them, not sitting in our offices, but talking to them, hearing about their concerns, hearing what they wanted to see change into the future, and most importantly, exploring how we could work together to empower the students to really feel like they were making a difference. And that message, along with the Schrader is Greater campaign slogan, I think some free promises of free food along the way, every student likes that, we had a much better result. And as you can see here, thankfully the name plaque all worked out. I was able to go shopping. The trip was delayed by a couple weeks, but got to get the decorations and was fortunate and honored to then serve as the campus governor for the year nonetheless. It was a very different outcome than I had expected. I quite honestly thought it was going to be a real easy walk into the office, but it took a little more time. And that experience allowed me to realize then you can't take stuff for granted as well, but that you have to be adaptable. And if you want to see something happen in your own life, if you want to achieve a goal, sometimes you must be adaptable and persevere past the obstacles to make that happen. If we could please go on to the next photo. As I was fortunate to be the campus governor, I did that for the year, and then I had one more year left in my MBA program. And it's always been a goal of mine to go to law school, and everybody says you're probably crazy because you already have an undergrad, you have an MBA, you want to go get more schooling, and that's probably true. I have another hole in the head somewhere. But in all seriousness, it has always been a lifelong aspiration to serve the public in some kind of judicial capacity, whether as a JAG officer or through the federal prosecutor's office or some way like that to really help people and help our collective society. However, I thought maybe as I am in the final year of my MBA, I could take a gap year or 2 years to do some other things, to go see the world, or as my friends like to tell me, to touch grass and go out and be relevant and really see what's going on in other parts of the world. And so as I was approaching the end of my MBA, I was afforded the opportunity to go to a few different programs, as was mentioned, the World Bank, the United Nations, and I went into these forums thinking that what was going on in Clearwater was going to be so exciting. Everybody would want to hear all about it. That was probably one of the most humbling experiences when you walk in there and say, well, we've all got our own problems all over the world, so get in line, you know, right in line with a coffee stand if you want. And it made me realize maybe there would be the power and the opportunity available to go see other parts of the world and engage in some kind of fellowship, engage in some kind of opportunity to do this. And so my parents are really both the math experts, especially my mom being a math professor. I'm no expert, but I thought if I apply for a couple programs at the same time, the probability is going to be much higher that I'm going to get one. There'll be some opportunity that will work out. And so sure enough, I applied for the Fulbright. I applied for the Japan English teaching program, as well as the Princeton in Asia program. And you know, these fellowship applications, if you all are familiar with these or have ever done something like this, it's kind of like a grant application. It is extremely extensive in terms of what they need. The letters to describe what you want, the goals that you need, an updated resume, several letters of recommendation that takes months and months to really procure something that is solid and makes a lot of sense. So I spent all this time completing these applications, and I was very excited because in the spring semester of the final year of the MBA, I was a finalist for all 3 programs. I thought, wow, I just need one. I just need one to work out. Something's going to happen, right? If I'm a finalist here, you gotta feel good that something is going to come to fruition. That semester then, things really took a turn when I was not only not selected for one, I was not selected for all 3 programs. Uh-oh, that's not good. Everybody said, oh, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I thought, well, I'd put them in 3 baskets, right? One of them's gonna work. When all the baskets broke, though, then you have a little bit of a problem. And I thought, this idea of going abroad, this idea of expanding my world perspective is still, I think, possible. It still is one that makes sense. But maybe there is some other way to go about doing this kind of work. And so through the Japan English teaching program, they have a huge network of alumni that have engaged in the program over the years. And out of their Miami office, they had sent an email showcasing different opportunities. And they said, well, there is a teaching program that is coming up in the fall in Japan, and maybe some of you might be interested that hadn't been picked for the JET program itself. And I thought about this, I thought, yeah, why not? That would be fun, that would be exciting, it'd be a little different. I'm definitely not a teacher by trade. I don't have the patience to do something like that, regardless of how much coffee you have. But it was still a fun experience, and it allowed me then to be able to gain that world perspective. And while I was in Japan teaching, I was fortunate to do some research, visit different major companies like Honda and Toyota, and really see how they are making a difference around the world. And while I was there, I was shared the opportunity then to apply to serve as a U.S. Youth Ambassador at the World Expo. And there were over, I think, 1,500 applications for 88 spots. And you do the math on that. Again, I have to do my math a couple times to make sure I'm right. The probability of that is extremely low. But somehow I was fortunate enough to be picked to do that. And I think then the goal of engaging abroad, engaging with different perspectives, I thought would be Fulbright. I thought would be maybe the Japan teaching program all the way through for a year. But in fact, it was very different. And I think, again, that idea of adaptability is one that is very important. There were some very tough and challenging moments that I had to deal with in thinking about how much time was invested in this work for it to not come to fruition. But the goal and the opportunity to be abroad happened nonetheless. I still speak no Japanese at all. I couldn't translate anything, but a really great experience. And I think, again, really shows that idea of adaptability in real time. And the last example I'd like to talk about, which I think is especially relevant today, is on the idea of traveling. You can see here, this is a nice sunset view I think I took aboard a plane somewhere. The idea of traveling is a lot of fun, right? You always see these videos and these pictures and you go to all these places until you're in the airport and you're getting a notification on your flight app that the flight has been delayed by maybe 5 or 6 hours, and there's not a whole lot you can do because they've got your bags already checked in. That's not as fun to deal with, and there have been quite a few instances of dealing with that, but it's been fun nonetheless. And there are 2 real specific examples that come to mind for me. A couple of years ago when I was invited to speak at the United Nations, this was in the summer of 2023, I thought it'd be a quick trip. I would go to the UN, speak there, and then I would get there the night before and then leave the day after. Of course, to stay a lot of time in New York cost a lot of money, so I thought you'd go up for the night, have fun, get a pizza, get a picture with the Statue of Liberty, speak, and then go home. I flew into Newark Airport, and this was through United, and I don't know if you all recall, this is the summer of their famous ground stop, where I think they grounded almost every flight in the country because of some weather issue or some issue with the FAA. And I walked into Newark Airport and I noticed all of these people around me that were on beds, sleeping. And I thought, wow, man, that's tough for them. I wonder what's going on in their case. And then I saw in the news, nationwide delay with United. I thought, man, thankfully I'm not dealing with that, right? That'd be kind of tough. I think I must have spoke something into existence, because in a few minutes after I thought that, I got a notification from United that said, your flight home tomorrow has been canceled, and we cannot guarantee you a flight home for about a week. And on top of that, because the issue is on the FAA's regulations, is what we're going to call it, you're going to have to pay out of pocket if you want to stay at a hotel, if you want to do something else. And I thought, okay, no problem, right? No problem. Let me see if I can find another flight to go home. I think they had one flight left with American that was only $2,000 one way back to Tampa, so a little expensive. And I thought maybe there's a way to be adaptable, right? Maybe there's a surrounding airport. I'm not a big geography guy, but with the help of Google Maps, I can see what's in the area. I started looking at surrounding airports in New York. Nothing was available. I started looking in Pennsylvania. Nothing was available. But there was one flight left out of Washington with Southwest to get back to Tampa that evening. And I'd scheduled a couple meetings the next day that I didn't want to miss. And so that was really my focus. And so I had to figure out how I would get from New York City, though, to Washington on the same day. And so what I ended up doing was finding, with the help of Google Maps, an Amtrak train that was able to take me from New York City by train down to Washington, D.C. I got to the Washington train station. I thought everything's going to be all well and good, except for the fact that the presidential motorcade had just gone through the city. So the Uber driver said, I've lived here 20 years, I've never seen traffic like this. That's really not what you want to hear when you're 30 minutes away from missing the flight. But I thought, you got to be adaptable, you got to persevere. I go to the airport, I check my bags in, and funny enough, they say, oh man, you're not going to get this flight, nothing's going to happen, you're probably going to have to spend the night here in the airport, so hopefully you enjoy Washington. But I thought, I got to persevere. Maybe there's some way to be adaptable and keep going. So I checked my bags and I ran to the gate, and nothing was happening. I thought, oh man, I must have missed the flight. It must have just closed with their airline doors. And I went up to the attendant, and they said, oh, the plane that you're going to get on, there's been a weather delay, so the plane's still out on the runway. You're good to go. You're one of the first people here. They didn't tell you that over at the gate. And I said, yeah, they must have really wanted to have some good entertainment. They said, you want to see this guy run? But I was able to make it back to Tampa that evening. It was not the same way I had envisioned it. I thought it was a very different experience, a lot of different layovers in airports than I had thought it would be. But again, adaptability nonetheless. And I think this idea of adaptability, again, is very important, but it is one that is not always easy, right? It is so easy to think, oh, just change your outlook on this, just change your attitude. For example, with the development and progression of this church building, there have been so many instances of adaptability, but it is not always easy. But when you have those around you, your family, your friends, those that you can really rely on for help and support, as well as, again, thinking about the goal that you have in mind. If you center yourself back to the goal that you initially set out to achieve, why am I doing this certain thing? What kind of impact will my actions have? I think that empowers you so strongly to be adaptable and focusing on the mission and focusing on how you can achieve things. And so now as we go into this great season through the holidays and Christmas and into 2026, and you think about goals that you want to set, I encourage you to think about not only very exciting, ambitious goals that you can have for yourself and those around you, but how you can be adaptable and use this idea of focusing on the mission, focusing on what you want to achieve, but being okay and acceptable if it doesn't always work out, because that way you've got a lot of good stories to tell, and it keeps it really fun and very interesting. So thank you very much for the honor to be back today. Really appreciate it. Thank you.